Good morning and welcome to the second workshop in the Surfing the Tsunami of Sustainability Compliance series. We would like to remind you that the goal of this training is to help large waste-producing companies surf the regulatory changes related to sustainability that are currently unfolding across Europe. Let me remind you that this training series consists of 5 workshops held online during the last quarter of the year, focused on the waste resource perspective. Each workshop will last around 20 minutes, providing valuable information for people who don't have time to waste. We will have 2 introductory workshops covering the key aspects of 7 European regulations and 3 specific workshops on the directives and regulation that most affect large waste producers: Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD, and the Waste Shipments Regulation. In the previous workshop, we gave a brief introduction to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the Green Claims Directive, and the Critical Raw Materials Regulation. In the second workshop, we will provide key insights into the Ecodesign Regulation, the Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD, the Packaging Regulation, and the Waste Shipment Regulation. I'm Miguel Varela, founder of the tech company Teimas, and I will be your host for this webinar series. And without further delay, let's get started.
Thank you, Miguel. Good morning. My name is Lucia Gomez, and after Miguel Varela's introduction, it's time to talk about Ecodesign Regulation. So, let's go. First of all, it's important to keep in mind that organizations are becoming increasingly concerned about the importance of environmental management systems. Until now, the organization company focused mainly on environmental aspects associated with manufacturing. But they didn't go beyond production, and now, with eco-design standards, we will focus on environmental aspects associated with the product. That is what eco-design is based on. But where is eco-design? We could say that it's a methodology that integrates environmental criteria in the design of products and services, aiming to reduce the environmental impacts they produce throughout the life cycle, from the beginning to the end. The European Union is one of the most advanced regions in the implementation of eco-design regulations. The Ecodesign Directive 2009/135 EC is a key piece of European legislation that establishes a framework for setting ecological design requirements applicable to energy-related products with the aim of ensuring their free movement within the European internal market. It was adopted by the Council and European Parliament in May 2024, and it entered into force on 18 July 2024, this year, and it will replace the current Directive 2009/135 EC. The regulation of eco-design is an essential framework where its main objectives are based on improving circularity, sustainability, and energy efficiency in the production of goods. And it is, and it will be, an important key tool in the fight against climate change and environmental protection. If we focus on the current 2009 directive, it's important to know, as we have mentioned before, that it relates only to energy efficiency and products, and the European Commission will specify the specific eco-design criteria for them. It's remarkable that this directive excludes vehicles, food, and medicinal products and services, and prohibits the destruction of certain unsold consumer goods. Textiles and footwear are also mentioned, and it will apply to imported products too. Many energy-related products have significant potential for improvement to reduce environmental impacts and achieve energy savings through better design, which also generates cost savings not only for companies, but also for end users. In an effort to enhance transparency and sustainable management of products, a digital passport standardization committee has also been established. The digital passport is an essential tool that will be linked to a unique identifier for each product. This identifier will allow precise tracking of the product throughout its life cycle. This information will include details about products' environmental footprint, contained substances, and recycling rate and energy water intensity criteria. The passport information will be physically available on the product, its packaging or associated documentation, ensuring that the data is accessible in various contexts. The passport will provide structured and searchable information, facilitating the search and access to relevant details about the product. This will include users' manuals, warnings, instructions, and other useful data for consumers and professionals. Additionally, the European Commission will adopt a specific information that will vary depending on the type of product. This detailed and standardized approach aims to promote greater environmental responsibility and facilitate the transition to a circular economy. So, let's continue with this workshop, and it's time to know more about corporate sustainability due diligence. So now, we turn it over to Miguel. Thank you very much.
Hello again. Thank you, Lucia, for briefly summarizing some key aspects of the Ecodesign Regulation. I'm Miguel, and next I will give you a brief introduction to the Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD. On the 25th of July 2024, the Directive on Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence, CSDDD Directive, entered into force. The CSDDD sets out a corporate due diligence duty for large companies to identify and address adverse human rights impacts, such as child labor, for example, and environmental impacts, such as pollution, waste management issues, etc., in their own operation and those of their subsidiaries and the activities of the value chain. That is one, from our perspective, most important things to remark from this directive, this holistic vision. Companies have the duty of care to protect the environment inside their own walls, but they also have to take care of the activities of their subsidiaries, companies that are members of the holding, the business partners that set up their value chain. We are talking about suppliers, manufacturers, partners, distributors, transporters, storage companies, contractors, waste managers, and waste treatment facilities as well. Who are the companies affected? For those companies based in the European Union, this directive affects about 6,000 large companies, those that have more than 1,000 employees and more than 450 million euros of turnover. For non-European Union-based companies, the directive are related to the turnover. So the companies affected are those with more than 405 million euros in the European Union market, around 900 companies. For small and medium enterprises, SME, are not directly affected by the due diligence directive, but there is a catch, because they should be aligned with this standard if they are part of the value chain of a large company, as a supplier, contractor, business partner, reseller, manufacturer, etc. CSDDD duties for companies are: integrate due diligence into the corporate policies and risk management system. They have to identify human rights and environmental impacts in the company's operation, as well as those of its subsidiaries and of its business partners in the chain of activities. They should establish the priority of these risks according to their severity and likelihood, address negative impacts that have been or should have been identified where necessary in the order of prioritization, also prevent and or mitigate potential impacts, and when negative impacts have already occurred, bring them to an end, or if not immediately possible, at least minimize their extent, engage with the stakeholders, in example, consulting them at certain stage of the due diligence processes, for example, risk assessment phase, establish and maintain a complaints and notification procedure, monitor as well the effectiveness of the due diligence measures, and of course communicate publicly on due diligence according to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, and the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. The roadmap of the Due Diligence Directive, the planning, was published on the official journal of the EU on 5 July of 2024, and the clock is ticking. In 2 years from now, 26 of July 2026, Member States have to transpose the directive into national law. In 3 years, 26 of July 2027, the rules will start to apply to companies, starting with large European Union companies with more than 5,000 employees and more than 1,500 million euros of turnover generated worldwide, and non-European companies with more than 1,500 million euros of turnovers generated in the European market. In 4 years, 26 of July of 2028, it's time for European-based companies with more than 3,000 employees and 900 million euros of worldwide turnover, and for non-European companies with more than 900 million euros of turnover generated in the European Union market. And in 5 years, 26 of July 2029, all other companies in scope, so there's no time to lose. Let me remind you that we will soon have a specific workshop dedicated solely to discussing this topic, focused on the needs and responsibilities of large waste producers under the Due Diligence CSDDD Directive. I hope you found this information useful. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Miguel. Among many other laws, the EU has also now focused on another area, specifically packaging waste. And this for a very good reason. Let's have a brief look at some interesting figures. In 2018, packaging generated a turnover of 355 billion euros in the EU. Packaging is an ever-increasing source of waste in the EU, total having increased from 66 million tons in 2009 to 85 million tons in 2021. Each European person generated nearly 190 kilos of packaging waste in 2021, a figure that is expected to increase to nearly 210 kilos in 2030 if any additional measures are taken. Let's pause on this. That means 20 kilos in less than 10 years. Therefore, it is high time to tackle this issue, and this regulation harmonizes internal market rules and boosts the circular economy. How? Well, let's dive deeper into that. Let's have a look. First of all, this soon-to-be-approved regulation set out requirements to ensure that packaging is safe for consumers and sustainable, for example, preventing adverse health effects on the people living in Europe. It forces, therefore, the minimization of the presence of substances of concern. As well, under the new rules, all packaging except for lightweight wood, cork, textile, rubber, ceramic, porcelain and wax will have to be recyclable, fulfilling strict criteria. This regulation set out some minimum content of recycled material in the packaging. The targets are set by 2030 and 2040. Furthermore, another important step taken in this new law is the harmonization of labeling in order to improve consumer information. The new regulation also establishes several reuse obligations, and it forces companies to minimize the amount of packaging used. Last but not least, this regulation introduced the use of deposit, return and refund system as compulsory in all the countries. By 2029, the 90% of single-use plastic and metal beverage containers up to 3 liters will have to be collected separately, either via the previously mentioned systems or by another solution that ensure that this collection target is met. And all of these measures together are the plan with which the EU expects to reduce packaging waste. Thank you.
Thanks, Estrella. Did you know that in the last 20 years, waste exports from the European Union to third countries have increased by 72%? It's a huge challenge. Now, the European Regulation 2024/1157 will support the circular economy to ensure that exported waste is treated in an environmentally sustainable way. So, the new Waste Shipment Regulation creates new rules. It has 3 key points: increased traceability and transparency, stricter rules to avoid waste crime, and digitalization. But we are not starting from scratch. In recent years, the European Union has created a system for monitoring waste shipments. There are also agreements with several countries, defined procedures, and many bans. Let's have a look. When it comes to agreements, Europe has agreements with the countries of the European Free Trade Association, OECD countries, and those that have signed the Basel Convention. When it comes to procedures, there's already a general procedure for less dangerous waste, the Green List, and another procedure with notification and consent for more dangerous and mixed waste. If we talk about rules and prohibitions, I must highlight 2 of the most important ones. On one hand, there is a general ban on waste exports for disposal. On the other hand, there is also a ban on hazardous waste exports for recovery, but only if they go to non-OECD countries. All of these agreements and rules remain in force, but waste trafficking is increasing, so it's not enough. The European Commission thinks that it's important to prevent environmental degradation, not only in the European Union, but also in non-European countries. Under the new regulation, European companies that export waste to third countries must ensure that the facilities receiving their waste conduct an independent audit. They must show that they can treat waste in a proper and sustainable way. If there is no positive audit, European companies must stop sending them the waste. And how much can this impact European companies? Let's review the data. In 2023, around 35 million tons of waste were exported from the European Union. Currently, 49% of exported waste goes to non-OECD countries, almost a half of our produced waste. With a new regulation starting in 2027, it will be harder. Sending waste for recovery to non-OECD countries will only be allowed under two conditions. If those destination countries inform us that they really want to import waste, and if they can demonstrate that they will be able to manage the waste in a sustainable way. We can also talk about the plastic waste produced by European companies. In 2 years, exporting plastic waste to non-OECD countries will be banned for 2.5 years. After that period, those countries may import plastic waste again under two conditions: if they comply with the strict rules and if the European Commission evaluates them positively. And how will all this control be implemented? Under the new regulation, the procedures for shipping waste will be digitized starting in May 2026, in 2 years. This will facilitate transparency and better tracking of waste shipments, and it will also help to control waste trafficking. Waste trafficking is one of the most serious environmental crimes. It damages the environment and is detrimental to legitimate business. Under the new regulation, there will be more cooperation between European states to find criminals involved in illicit waste trade, and the sanctions will be higher. So, summarizing, the new waste shipment regulation creates stricter rules in order to avoid poor management and illegal trafficking of waste. The procedures are known, but now they will be based on traceability and digitalization. Thank you so much for listening. It's time to hand the floor back to Miguel.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope this second workshop has provided you with valuable insights into the Ecodesign Regulation, the Packaging Regulation, the Due Diligence Directive, and the Waste Shipments Regulation. Some key points to remember. About the Ecodesign Regulation, it focuses on integrating environmental criteria through a product life cycle. It aims to improve sustainability and energy efficiency within the European Union, and, important, introduces the digital product passport to enhance transparency and traceability of products. The Due Diligence Directive (CS3D) came into force on July 25, 2024. The CS3D extends due diligence responsibilities for large companies to their entire value chain, including subsidiaries and suppliers. Approximately 6,000 European companies and 900 non-European companies operating in the European market will be directly affected by the directive. The packaging regulation, 40% of the plastic and 50% of the paper used in the European Union are for packaging, driving the focus on reducing these figures. By 2029, member states must ensure the separate collection of at least 90% of single-use plastic bottles and metal beverage containers. This regulation as well compels companies to minimize the amount of packaging used. And about the last, waste shipment regulations, this new regulation will have a significant impact on European companies, especially those exporting waste to non-OECD countries. It introduces stricter rules to prevent poor waste management and illegal trafficking. Transparency and digitalization are vital components of this regulation. This is just the beginning. Our next webinar will focus specifically on the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, and will be held on Wednesday, 23rd of October. You can sign up at tsunami.teimas.com. More details will follow soon, and as always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thank you.